Hey there, little dragons! Today I'm going to be doing a completely original video that has never been done before. Just kidding. I'm gonna do an episode by episode review of House of the Dragon. I need to gush about this show. After season 8, I was not expecting much from this series, but holy moly, this show is stellar. I'm still geeking out about it! Anyways, let's get on with the video. Just a warning, there will be spoilers for House of the Dragon and Game of Thrones ahead. I've heard some people complain that the prologue isn't cohesive with the Game of Thrones style and that it's out of place. But honestly, I love this prologue. As someone who was disillusioned with the Game of Thrones franchise, this intro reeled me in. It quickly sets up the themes, premise, some of the crucial characters, and the story overall. Emma Darcy, aka Older Rhaenyra, voicing the narration was a nice touch. It feels like they're reading Fire and Blood to us, which for show fans, it was a necessary introduction. Even though this introduction is probably here for the people who didn't read the books, it doesn't feel like that at all. It's an introduction that gives you exposition without being boring or just too much exposition. Also, it's fun to see King Jaehaerys. I think the show starts at a perfect point in Westerosi history, but King Jaehaerys is a very cool character in the book. So while it's sad we probably won't see more of King Jae, this short clip of Old Man Jay is just fun to see as a book fan. The opening text has been criticized as being a bit on the nose, but again, I think it really helps the show fans understand where this story is in comparison to Game of Thrones. Plus, as some of you know, I am a huge Daenerys fan, so this is a cute nod to the rightful queen. When the main story starts by showing Syrax, I was worried that the show would just be, oh, look at the dragons. The dragons are why you watch Game of Thrones, right? Cheer for the dragons! But honestly, knowing what I know now about the show, this scene says a lot. Firstly, Ramin Djawadi's score establishes a return to form with inspiration from the show's original Dany themes. Then the dragon establishes the height of Targaryen power. In the original show, Dany doesn't get dragons until the very end of season 1, and they're 3 very small hatchlings that could easily be stolen from her and her small Khalasar. However, in House of the Dragon, Rhaenyra flies on a fully grown or almost grown dragon through the skies of King's Landing. The shot of the recently built Red Keep and the Dragon Pit really reflects the time of strength and prosperity of House Targaryen at this time in history. And lastly, showing Rhaenyra flying on a dragon demonstrates how free-spirited and independent she is. She's an accomplished dragon rider, and as later lines suggest, this is all she needs or wants in life. One of my favorite things about this show is the dragon designs, Syrax being one of my favorites. Props to the showrunners for giving the dragon's unique personality, especially Caraxes, but we'll get to him later on in this series. I really like the Dragon Keepers as well. They make Valyrian an even more interesting language. But this overall sequence is a great introduction to Rhaenyra. Even before she's named heir, she breaks gender roles. She's not a polite, dainty lady. She's a badass, accomplished dragon rider at age 14, and she doesn't care about being the lady that her society tells her she has to be. I really like the journey through King's Landing in the royal carriage. It makes King's Landing look different from the Game of Thrones King's Landing. I also like the Balerion statue in the city. It's the same city, but it's in a more prosperous time in Westerosi history. The scene with Aemma and Rhaenyra is a good scene because it effortlessly establishes the relationship and connection they have before Aemma is tragically ripped away from Rhaenyra. Cian Brooke is very talented, hopefully I'm not butchering her name, and it's a shame she's only in one episode. It's also great casting because Aemma looks a lot like older Rhaenyra, which is such a great detail. Sometimes I look at families in movies and think, none of these people look related. But with the royal family, they are a very believable family. My only problem with this scene is Rhaenyra's line about how she'd rather be a knight. It just feels a bit forced. Like, I like subtlety in media. I don't like it banged over my head that, oh, she's a lady who doesn't like being a lady. You know, it's a little bit much, but it's not too bad here. Something fun they introduced in the scene is the dragon snake. I wish this was in the main series. It would be so funny for someone to tell Daenerys that she smells nasty or something. The next scene is the small council meeting, and oh boy, I love the small council scenes. They're so good at establishing the different dynamics between the small council. Viserys just wants to placate the people around him. Otto is a dominant hand that asserts himself over the other members of the small council. Maester Mellos is in the pocket of Otto and backs him up in small council meetings. Lord Strong is a good, loyal man who isn't as loud of a voice as Otto, Mellos, and Corlys are. Corlys is an assertive man that rivals Otto. He tries to tell the king about important matters, but the rest of the council just wants to placate and manipulate the king. Then there's Lord Beesbury, a loyal man who isn't super prominent in the small council, but he adds to the overall dynamic of a council of people trying to placate the king. On top of establishing dynamics between the characters, the first small council scene establishes some key plot points for the first half of season 1. It establishes the triarchy and the crab feeder and how Corlys feels undermined when no one will aid him in his situation. He is unsatisfied with the inaction and placating nature of the small council. And then it establishes Daemon and how, while he has a role in court, he is noticeably absent from court. This demonstrates how Daemon has a strained and distant relationship with the lords at court, and more importantly, his brother Viserys. Another great thing about this scene is the introduction of Rhys Ifans as the hand Otto Hightower. The way he shuts down Corlys, the sea snake, the crown's most powerful ally, with one sentence. If I had to compare the two, Tywin is definitely a stronger presence, no disrespect to Rhys. I don't think anyone can top Charles Dance as Tywin Lannister, as I've said in previous videos, but Rhys has his own unique presence that fits the character and story. And I remember watching this episode as it premiered, and this was the moment that sold me. This one line was the moment I realized I was watching the real Game of Thrones again.
The Crown has heard your report, Lord Corlys, and takes it under advisement.
Paddy is obviously the best actor in this ensemble, but Rhys is definitely a powerful actor in this cast of very talented actors. I also like the dynamic of Rhaenyra being a cupbearer and in a way is a servant of the council of powerful men. This is some of the subtlety that I like and would prefer over directly telling the audience the power imbalance. This is enhanced by us watching her reaction to Viserys proclaiming he'll have a son. In this moment, it is plain to see that Rhaenyra wants to be the child that Viserys wants. In her eyes, her gender causes her to not receive the love she wants from her father. She wasn't the child Viserys wanted solely because of the gender she was born with. Her face says all of this. This is why I'm not really a fan of the "I'd rather be a knight" line. Show, don't tell. That same praise can be applied to Daemon's introduction scene. Similar to my reaction to Otto's intro, this shot of Matt Smith's Daemon sitting on the Iron Throne, not giving a single fuck, really sold me on Matt Smith playing Daemon. The fucking swagger. Him sitting on the throne tells us everything about who he is. He's Daemon and he doesn't give a single fuck. He casually commits treason just to make an entrance. And when they started speaking High Valyrian to each other, it felt like real Targaryens. Millie and Matt sell this language to me. I want to learn this language because of these scenes. They establish an intimate relationship with these two. That definitely makes the incest alarms go off, even if you haven't read Fire and Blood. Another relationship I like is the relationship between young Rhaenyra and young Alicent. It kind of has Fox and the Hound or Doom friendship vibes. The world is about to rip these two girls apart and it's heartbreaking. This dynamic is a great twist on their relationship in the books. In the books, Alicent is significantly older than Rhaenyra, and they have a weird connection. Like, Rhaenyra helps undress her for the bedding ceremony between the wedding of Alicent and Viserys, and then a few years later they hate each other? This works a lot better. Them being the same age makes it seem more realistic. They grew up in King's Landing together and became close friends because of it. Millie and Emily really do a great job here. I feel like these two are best friends. I also like the subtle implication that they might have a romantic connection. I don't know if anyone else sees that. I just make everything I touch gay. Now we have another good scene with Emma. I really appreciate as someone who grew up as a woman, but the writers actually understand pregnancy. While I haven't been pregnant before, I have known pregnant women. They are miserable. A lot of the time, pregnant women are just the butt of a joke. Oh no, my wife is craving pickles and ice cream. Or, you're glowing because as a woman, you're more attractive when you use your uterus. Or, if it's not the butt of a joke or some creepy misogynistic comment, it's all about the baby and how cute the fucking baby is. Not the 9-month toll a woman takes on her body. That's why I like Emma. This scene where she's venting about the struggles of pregnancy was a breath of fresh air. Like, pregnancy is hard in the 2020s, but it pales to the misery that Emma was experiencing. She's having a baby in, like, I guess the Game of Thrones equivalent of the 1400s. They won't even let her take a hot bath because they're more worried about the baby than they are about her. When you have a baby in this world, you do not matter. Only the offspring you produce for your husband matters. And this isn't her first miserable pregnancy. She has had 5 failed pregnancies before this. Not only has it taken a toll on her physically, it's destroyed her emotionally. She has lost 5 children basically, and on top of that, she feels like she's the reason why Viserys doesn't have an heir. She blames herself, and she probably goes out thinking that way too. But it's heartbreaking that Emma spent a good chunk of her life blaming herself for Viserys not having a male heir. She puts herself through hell to serve a system that does not care about her. This system hurts women, destroys them, and tears them apart or kills them. Before we continue the video, let's hear a quick word from our sponsor. And I'm the sponsor. I just launched a new Patreon page for this channel. Tiers start as little as $3, and I offer rewards from behind the scenes content, editing live streams, getting my Snapchat, and your very own unique little dragon. The link is on my Linktree and in the description below. Now back to the video. Something I like about this series is how sex and violence is used only to support the story, not just for shock value. The City Watch scene demonstrates how brutal Daemon is and how he enjoys violence, and the sex scene with Mysaria establishes their relationship. It tells us A, she's a sex worker, B, she's a higher standing sex worker, probably someone that runs the brothel, and C, it establishes her as Daemon's emotional support and paramour. It also shows us that the sexual frustration Daemon has comes from his insecurities and internal emotional turmoil. This is a great change from Game of Thrones, because instead of just showing 2 sex workers having sex just to show them having sex, or having a sex worker have cum on her mouth just for gross shock value, sex and violence in the show is a necessary story element rather than just there for shock value. The transition from Daemon's cart of dismemberments to Otto talking about said dismemberments is great. This series has a strikingly different editing style from Game of Thrones, and I enjoy it quite a bit. Then after Otto is done speaking, we see Daemon finally making appearance in court, and all he does is fuck with Otto and leave. Absolute Chad. The tourney is a really cool scene. One of the weaknesses of Game of Thrones Season 1 was the size of the budget. Famously, the King's Hunt was just a few guys walking through the woods shooting the shit. George did not like this, so the tourney scene in Season 1 was also very small scale. This tourney, however, is not small scale. It has a huge set piece, great heraldry, more than like 3 knights, fun world building. It's a great scene, and one of my personal favorites. A cute detail I noticed was when Alicent's brother goes up against Daemon, she starts biting her nails out of anxiety. Rhaenyra notices this and comforts her. Then Alicent stops biting her nails. I know this is a minor detail, but small stuff like this excites me. Something else I noticed was that the Maesters tell Otto about Emma's childbirth complications first, then Otto tells Viserys. This small detail really shows who is in control here. And speaking of Emma's childbirth complications, good god, this was good. Like, I knew Viserys would marry Alicent, so unless Viserys was gonna pull a Rhaegar and get a snazzy marriage annulment with a woman he loves, yeah, Emma was gonna die. But I didn't know how. So once she started having complications with childbirth, I was like, oh no. I knew shit was about to go down, but damn, this was wild. Cian Brooke did a legendary performance. I am speechless. Something else I love about this scene is that we can make the theory that the Maesters wanted Emma dead so Otto could manipulate Viserys into marrying Alicent. Because it's Mellos that tells Viserys that he needs to either kill Emma to save the baby or hope for the best. We as an audience don't know for sure if the baby was actually in breach. I know I might sound like a crazy person, but I don't know. Mellos is sus. Especially given that Otto immediately pimps out Alicent after Emma's funeral. Viserys' choice was so horrific and exemplifies the theme I discussed earlier. Women are second class in this world. They are only here to produce heirs and create marriage alliances. He would rather have a baby with a penis than his loving wife. An heir is more important than her. This was such a powerful moment, and all I can say is rest in peace, Emma. Some people have said that the dragon CGI has problems in this series. And yeah, in some of the shots the blending of the CGI and green screen is a little off, but 95% of the time they look great. I love how Cyrax looks in this funeral scene. Honestly, the funeral scene is so powerful. I love how Daemon sheds his cocky, badass exterior to be supportive of Rhaenyra and Viserys in their time of need. And the sadness that Rhaenyra expresses at both the death of her mother and the fact that her father would seemingly never love her the way he would have loved his son is just beautifully tragic. And Millie Alcock is such a talented actor. She can convey so much emotion with just facial expressions. I hope your career takes off, Millie. You deserve it. The next scene with the small council is just so goddamn juicy. I know literally every person that has reviewed House of the Dragon says this, but get Paddy and Emmy, hot damn. Like, this show is good in many ways, but Paddy carries the show. It sucks we won't get to see more of him in this series, but this scene is one of my favorites just because of his performance. The way he manically says,
"My brother would murder me. Take my crown."
It's just so goddamn good. And how he snaps and yells at the council.
My wife and son are dead! I will not sit here and suffer crows that come to feast on their corpses!
Nice reference to A Feast for Crows, by the way. Something fun this show did was add Viserys' modeling hobby. I think it's there to show us his longing for glory in a time of peace. He wants his kingdom and house to be as powerful as Valyria once was. But the Targaryens and sort of the Valyrians are the last Dragon Lords. So it's unlikely that the Seven Kingdoms would ever reach the height of power of old Valyria. So he builds his model to play out his fantasy. Kind of like when you play The Sims and use simoleon cheat codes to pretend you're not poor and you're not eating ramen in your studio apartment and you're not crying every day. What? Yeah, that never happened. That doesn't happen at all. Yeah, I've never had that happen to me, you know? I love the Heir for a Day scene, but tension as Otto tells Viserys what Daemon said about his dead child is just so thick. And the editing can leave the true meaning of Heir for a Day up to the audience. Did Daemon mean it in a malicious way? Or did he mean it in a mournful way? Was he partying to celebrate his renewed status as heir? Or was he partying to cope with his grief? The show doesn't outright tell you, which helps paint the gray area of both Otto and Daemon. The argument between Daemon and Viserys is so great. It's only the first episode, but Matt and Paddy make you feel like you've been watching the show for years, and this is years worth of resentment and tension. You can just feel the pain each character is going through and their different perspectives. The ending of this episode is great. This show has a different editing style to Game of Thrones, and it really fits the story they are telling. While Viserys is talking to Rhaenyra about the responsibilities behind her new position as heir, we see shots of her in the throne room with all the lords swearing to her, and shots of Daemon and his paramour flying away on Caraxes. Also, I love my noodle boy. I will protect the noodle boy with my life. Nothing bad will ever happen to the noodle boy. Please don't let anything bad happen to the noodle boy. Let's make a petition so nothing bad happens to the noodle boy. All with this beautiful, foreboding piano theme in the background. Rhaenyra's rise as heir isn't triumphant. It's the seeds of war and chaos. And it mimics Ned's promise to Lyanna, with Viserys repeatedly saying, "Promise me." This episode was a fantastic start to this new series. While I was cautious going in because of the bad aftertaste of Season 8, I'm happy to say this episode knocked my socks off when it first premiered, and that feeling hasn't changed since the past 2 months, 3 months, actually it's been like 4 months now since it was released. How did this episode make you feel when it premiered? Let me know in the comments. I love hearing from you guys, and I will respond as fast as I can. Thank you all for watching. This has been Queen Visenya of House Drace, first of their name, Queen of the Yandels, the Rhoynar, and the First Men, Protector of the Realm, and Ruler of the Seven Kingdoms. Goodbye. Oh wow, you watched the whole video till the very end? That means you're entitled to a
Cat.
Today's cat of the day is Momonga, aka Momo. He is very talkative and fluffy. His pastime is screaming at 3 a.m. for no reason and playing with a feather on a stick. Here's a clip of Momo.
Hey Momo. Hey Momo. Little lion. Speak. On command.
Okay, I'm ending the video for real now. Bye!